Hey everyone, welcome back to a super hot and spicy episode of the Emily the Mystic Show podcast today. We are getting wild on the Emily the Mystic Show. This is a not safe for work episode. So be prepared before you listen to this one. Maybe you want to be in the bedroom. Maybe you want to be, in a private corner of your home. Do what you need to do, but that is your content warning before you continue listening. Okay, everyone, here we go. Sarah Silverstein is a somatic sexologist, breathwork guide, and therapeutic yoni massage facilitator. She helps women and vulva havers reconnect with their joy, confidence, and pleasure inside and outside of the bedroom. Drawing on years of experience guiding clients through body-based practices and energy work, Sarah creates a safe and playful space where people can dismantle shame, rediscover their sensuality, and feel more at home in their bodies. Yay, Sarah. Welcome to the
Yay!
show.
Thanks for having me.
And where are you located, Sarah?
I'm in Philadelphia
Oh my
with
God, she's a
you.
local girly with me. And Sarah's an office down the street, which is
Yeah.
fabulous. You guys, Sarah is so freaking cool. Like, she is such a goddess. Oh my God. I just admire her so much. And the fact that you do this work, it's just amazing. So, we can't wait to learn from you today, Sarah. So, thank you for
Thank
coming on the
you.
show.
Please. It's always a pleasure to be asked to speak about this stuff because generally it's very taboo. So it's nice that people can just be like, oh, it's in my ears and I'm just washing the dishes and not listening to anything spicy.
And it's a pleasure to talk about pleasure. How about that?
Yeah.
And I love always asking my guests to share with us your astrology information. So, what is your sun, moon, and rising?
I am a sun Pisces, a moon Cancer, a rising Capricorn.
Double water?
I cry all of the time. My joke is like I cry a lot, but I'm very efficient about it with my Capricorn rising.
Yes. And you hold just such a beautiful space. I mean, you need the structure with this sort of work too, because I think it can get a little, you know.
Easily. My bless my
Yes.
beloved teacher, she's like very lackadaisical with most things. And you'll be like, oh, this will be like an hour-long workshop. And then I'm like, oh my God, Kiki, we're over 90 minutes now. We've got come on. So it's very entertaining. But yeah, I'm a little bit of a psycho with keeping things nice and in.
And boundary. We need the boundaries in this practice too. 100%. Yes. And what is your human design type?
I am a manifesting generator 3-5 profile.
Very cool.
Nothing else makes
Yes.
sense to me in it. But every time people talk about human design, I'm like, oh, all right, get it.
I mean, just seeing all of the modalities that you've sprinkled into your bio today, there's a lot there. So
That's
that
like
makes
half of
sense.
them, which is silly. But I'm like, okay, yeah. But every time I'm like, I want to go and try this thing, I'm like, I'm a manifesting generator, so I can.
Yes, you can. Absolutely. Oh my God. So, can you explain to us in your own words what you do?
Yeah, I Listen, it gets to be a little bit dicey because when I tell people that I'm a somatic sexologist, they immediately think things that only happen inside of the bedroom. But this idea that we're compartmentalizing who we are is so foolish because we are ourselves inside and outside of the bedroom. So I will work with individuals who are interested in taking a look at kind of what their old and current patterns are, how it's holding them back from feeling more joy and pleasure in their like day-to-day life. And then we kind of parlay that into the bedroom stuff. That gets to be more of like the sex coaching stuff that I do. And then the thing that makes my heart flutter is therapeutic yoni massage, which is a non-sexualized massage of your body, vulva, and vagina to uncover what's kind of going on underneath the surface in a general area that is often not talked about or not seen and celebrated, and we can often be disconnected. So a lot of my work all goes from everything that feels like kind of on the outside and be like, okay, how do we bring everything back in? How are you connecting with yourself so you can feel like you're in the driver's seat of your own life?
Beautifully said. How did we get here? How did we become a sexologist? Like, take us on the journey. We would love to know.
Well, you see, sometimes you go to college for photography and then you have 9,000 lives amongst, law, advertising, real estate, finance, and then you lose your mind and you leave to travel the world. And that's where things get really fun because I tried to be very normal and like put myself into a box because I thought health insurance would be nice and like a 401k. And then I was like, wow, I am not this person. So I sold all of my belongings and I left to travel the world with my best friend. And it eventually led me to landing in Bali. I had already been a breathwork facilitator for a couple of years. So I was kind of sprinkling that in wherever I went. And when I landed on that glorious island, there weren't many people doing breathwork. This was like, golly, 8 years ago. Who knows? I don't understand time. And so I got to stay there, and that got to become a part of my job. And it was really fun and beautiful to help people access different parts of their body, release things, kind of come home to themselves in a myriad of ways. And then I had the pleasure of meeting my beloved friend and teacher, Kiki Marie. She is a somatic sexologist and a therapeutic yoni massage facilitator. And she also runs Yonilicious Academy, which is a whole schooling of how to become a facilitator in this realm. And listen, she is the most magical human. She like strolled in half hour late to an event, which I'm psychotic and I'm early to everything. So I was immediately like, who does this woman think she is? And she plopped down and I immediately was like, oh, I'm obsessed with her. And somebody asked her if she was still a practitioner of yoni massage. And I didn't know what a yoni was, let alone what a yoni massage was. And I just turned to her and I was kind of like, how do I get one of these things? And she's like, oh, like, let's have a conversation. And I was like, I'm a feet first kind of gal. Like, let's just go all in. And I had the pleasure of receiving that sacred modality from her. And that's when the game really started to change for me because I was somebody who had been in plenty of relationships and plenty of sexual relationships over my life at that rate. And I had an inability to orgasm. I faked pleasure all the time. I was definitely like, lying about what was happening for me because I felt like I was broken, but I hadn't really verbalized that. And then while I was in my yoni massage, I had a series of big emotions come up to the surface. And it was a wake up time for me where I was like, oh, I got to take a look at this. And I wasn't happy living the way that I was. And Kiki made it really easy for me to start to explore what it would look like to change that behavior and to understand my body and how things work. And so I became radically vocal and honest about things. And I just continued exploring how do I take these principles and these teachings that she has passed on to me. And then she very lovingly was like, when are you going to do my training? And I said, oh, no, thank you. I'm good. We had run like a bazillion workshops together at this rate. It was really fun. And I was like, oh no, like you are meant to be in this because she is like the essence of goddess, right? At least the way that I see it. And for me, I was like, there's no place for like, I'm a brash New Yorker. Like nobody wants to talk to me about their sex lives, let alone trust me to put my hands on them in that way. Like the breath work that I facilitate is really an upregulation, kind of dysregulating experience. And then I hold you at the end. But that is something that I feel really safe and comfortable in. And talking about sex was not it. And she kind of bullied me into it. And pandemic popped off, so I had ample time on my hands. So I was like, okay, great. Like, let's study this for a few years. And then I became obsessed with the curriculum. And I like to be helpful to people. And especially with a topic that's really sensitive, for whatever reason, I've been given the gift of talking about hard things with general levity and ease. And it just started to click. And then I had to fly back to Australia to finish my hands-on facilitator for yoni massage. And it was one of the most transformative weeks of my life. And I was like, whoa, like, I guess this is what I'm going to do now. And since then it's just kind of unfolded perfectly.
Wow, that's so freaking cool. I mean, what a ride. What a wild ride. I love that you said yes to all of this and you just jumped in feet first. Yes, yes, yes. So, can you explain to us a little bit about what a yoni massage is? I personally
Yeah.
have not had the pleasure of receiving one, so I can't speak to experience, but we would love to hear from you, Sarah. What is that?
Well, first and foremost, most people in America haven't because there's a lot of shame when it comes to talking about our genitalia in general, let alone amplifying our own pleasure, or even understanding our own bodies, right? Like, one of the things that I get obsessed with is the fact that there's just simply not enough scientific evidence or research done on our bodies and how things are functioning. And uh, then when we start to talk about our yonis, which if you don't know what a yoni is, it's just basically a Sanskrit word for all of, the parts. So like the uterus, the vagina, the vulva, the clitoris, the everything that's kind of happening there, the womb space. And it's just kind of a cute way to say it. So when you start talking about that, people get really uncomfortable. And Kiki is trained. I believe there's two of us fully trained in America to practice this. And to my knowledge, there aren't a lot of other facilitators of this specific modality because there are a lot of different ways to go about it. The most important thing that I want you to hear from my mouth is that I practice the therapeutic side of this. It's very similar to like pelvic floor therapy, but instead of it being clinical, it's more therapeutic, more holistic with the body. There are sexological body workers who perform a similar experience, but their primary goal is to find pleasure and bring it to that orgasmic level of pleasure. Not all
Mhm.
facilitators, obviously, there's lots of ins and outs with that. But on this side, what I'm focusing in on is the therapeutic side of the body, the vulva, the vagina, understanding the energetics and the emotions that come up with it. So I I generally say it is just a non-sexualized massage of your body. So we start kind of, I like to start with the jaw because most individuals aren't speaking up for their wants and needs. So there's generally a lot of tension here. I get to lovingly bring my hands onto their jaw. And if you're listening right now or you're watching, you can even bring like the fatty part of your thumb, put it underneath your cheekbones and just kind of open your jaw and just check in and see like, oh, wow, is there any tightness, any crunching, any clicking? You can bring in more pressure. I talk all of the time. As you can tell, I have no problem running my mouth. So it'll generally just kind of be tight here for me too. And so we start there and then we just move our way down the body. Then go into the chest, heart space area, connecting in there, always paying attention to the breath and nervous system, moving on to a non-sexualized massage of your breasts. And Emily, have your breasts ever been touched in a non-sexualized way by another person?
By a doctor, yes.
Isn't,
Yes.
isn't that fun?
Yeah.
So when Kiki performed it on me, I have pretty large titties, and there's a lot of them that are a lot of parts of it that have numbness, and I didn't know that. I was just like, oh, they're just like big fat blobs on my chest, and then she started to touch them in different ways, and sensations started to come back. And when somebody is performing a non-sexualized touch on your body with no demands of anything from you as a response, there's such a freeing part because the body will start to speak to you in different ways. So that I think is really fun. If you haven't touched your own breast, kind of go in on it because they need some love too. We then travel down and we go into the womb space, checking in on there, inner thighs, upper part of the feet, and then we move into the vulva part of it. And if you're watching the video, welcome to my yoni pillow.
Oh, love it.
She's delightful. You can spread her open. She goes all the way in. And so this is what I use with all of my clients just to kind of talk through exactly what we're getting into. And so we then explore the pubic mound, the clitoris, we have the clitoris is so much bigger than we know. We often think it's just this cutie little nub here, but there's a whole clitoral complex. There are vestibular bulbs that get to be engorged when we're in a sexualized experience. So if you were touching my pillow, you could feel them on the sides here, but basically bringing all of our sensations and feel good sensations happening here. We can experience more than just this little area. So we kind of explore and look around there. We go for outer labia, inner labia, perineum, and then we go into the vaginal canal. And then we basically treat the yoni like a clock. And so if you have ever had anything inserted into you, that's very similar. It's just a little bit of a finger. And then we just kind of go hour by hour. And I ask the same questions over and over again because we're looking for pleasure, pressure, pain, and numbness. And when, like I had said before with the breasts, like I'm not asking anything of you. I am simply asking you to listen to the sensations in your body, and we're going to get curious about what comes up to the surface. And sometimes that means there's some big trauma that comes up, or sometimes like, oh, wow, this feels really expansive and really good. As somebody who couldn't orgasm with other people, being able to drop into this kind of scenario and be like, oh, my pleasure exists on the left part of my outer left labia. Weird. Who would have known? And it's a interesting kind of realm to be like, okay, how do we map out where these sensations are? How do they feel for you? And if we want to spend more time in places with firmer pressure, then we can also do that. So it's like the easiest overview of this. And I say it with such levity, but it's obviously a super big experience. It's a 2.5 to 3 hour process. We
Wow.
spend time connecting beforehand. There's preparatory work, there's aftercare work. This is something that is not just like, hey, we're going to pop in and then go right back to our lives because we're constantly moving and constantly in forward action and tending to other people and not listening to our needs. And this is perfectly built for somebody to drop in, be present for a few hours, and get curious about their bodies.
Wow, incredible. And thank you so much for taking us through the anatomy lesson too.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch the video version of this on YouTube if you are not, because Sarah's also wearing her Sex Ed for All hat today, which is so perfect, perfectly
For
timed.
all,
We love
for
it.
all.
Oh my God, couldn't agree more. And I think, it's important to remember is that if hearing any of this is like, oh my God, like, what is this? Or creating questions for you. Pelvic floor therapy is a very well known, widely received, what am I trying to say? Medical
Practice? Yeah.
practice, medical
Yeah.
practice. And I've had the pleasure of receiving that. It changed my life. It's amazing. And so I'm sure that this experience takes that to the next level.
Yeah.
So pelvic floor therapy, I mean, they it's quick. It's again, it's very medically driven. So
Yeah.
it's quick, it's fast. And I feel like I love the fact that this is slow and you really take your time, and it builds that experience of comfort and safety to help you be able to go deep into, I'm sure, the feelings and the emotions and the memories and the trauma that can sometimes surface throughout all of it.
100%. I had the pleasure of recently doing a yoni massage on a gynecologist. And in the spirit of honesty, when I heard what her profession was, I was like, what? Like, what am I going to be able to teach this woman? And then I was like, oh, right. She's clinical. Right. And I get to be on the therapeutic sides. And after we had concluded, she just like looked up at me with the most beautiful smile. And she was like, that was so helpful. And like our integration calls afterwards, she was just like, wow, I'm seeing how it's impacting my life on a day-to-day basis. And I was like, yes. And she's like, it's also impacting how I'm talking to my patients. And I think that's what's really important, because in the clinical side of things, we don't ever get enough time with our doctors. And there's a myriad of reasons that I'm sure we don't all understand, but it's like when we want to feel seen and heard and accepted and cared for, it requires time. So I have the luxury of spending 3+ hours with humans sometimes, but it's such a beautiful thing to kind of go in and explore. And as somebody who questions everything, that's why I'm like, well, I will try everything twice just to see how it is. It's a modality that I've seen really kind of move mountains, and especially like big emotional mountains for people, especially those that have had children or have ever suffered from vulvodynia or vaginismus. Like there's just so many layers that when we bring loving awareness touch onto the body, things can really start to shift in a miraculous way.
Yes. Love that. What are some of the other benefits that you've seen your clients have, or results that they've had, or things that they've said after the fact that this has created for them?
I think one of the biggest things that I have heard is a lot of individuals suffer from low libido. Uh, where most of us are stuck in kind of a sympathetic nervous state, anyways, nervous system state where we're like moving and constantly going and we're on the guard. But when we're in that, our libido is going to tank because we're not going to prioritize sex with ourselves or with anybody else. And so, kind of one of the first things is like, oh, wow, like my body feels like it's online in a different way. And like I feel more charged that I want to be intimate with my partner, or like I want to carve out, 30 minutes of solo pleasure time with myself. And I'm like, yes, let's go. But also, outside of the bedroom sides of things, what I find is really cool is the level of self-confidence that people walk away with, because now they understand themselves and they're like, whoa, like I spoke up to my boss in this meeting when I wouldn't have done that before. And it's funny because it's like, how are you finding the correlation between yoni into that? But everything is within us. And if we consider our yoni being the epicenter of where all of our energy and our power comes from, of course, it's almost like you opened up the door to a deeper state of knowing who you are. And so watching it unfold in that way, or being able to speak up for what you want and need, whether it be in the bedroom or not, I think is so friggin' cool. But a lot of times, one of my favorite things is that people will have a deeper kind of gratitude for their yoni. I give them a little handheld mirror before we dive in on it. I tell them to spend some time looking at her, connecting, because obviously we're going on an endeavor. And if her body's saying no, then we don't. And I think every yoni is beautiful because they are. And I'll be like, oh my God, she's so pretty. And they're like, oh my God, I think she's so ugly. And I'm like, what? Like, we can't talk about ourselves like that. And so watching people be like, oh wow, like no, she is perfect exactly as she is
Mm.
really a special thing. And I think we undervalue that because we often will look at the vanity side of like, what are we showing to the world? But it's like our yonis are just as important.
Yes, totally. We need to love our anatomy and love what we were given and what, God source the universe has given us. So I think that's so important that you said that. And I can imagine that this would be so healing for the sacral chakra,
Yeah.
and for your energetic womb
Yeah.
and all of the things, the layers of trauma that get stored there, potentially even past life trauma. I mean, I like to go there when I'm thinking about this sort of work. So
Yes. Well, I mean, I even think about it just as like my mother, right? Like if I'm thinking about my lineage of who I'm coming from and being like, my mother didn't have this available for her,
Yeah.
let alone like what did the past versions of me have available? Like we're at a time where things are far more progressive and we don't have to hide this and we don't have to secretly talk about it. And it's like, look at who we could be if we listen to the body.
Hmm. Actually, that brings up such an important question, which is shame around
Mm,
sex and sexuality. I can imagine for you, maybe, and maybe not, but I could imagine that there's probably a bit of a journey with coming out of the closet, of getting ready to talk about this being your work and a big part of your life. So, can you speak on that a little bit and how you sort of came out of the sexologist closet?
yeah, it's it's always fun to kind of explain to my parents what I do for a living because since I left corporate, they're like, "What?" And I've had the pleasure of starting many businesses, and they're always like, "What?" And I think my mom was like, "So you finger women for a living?" And I was like, "Jesus Christ!"
Oh
Like,
my God, she went there.
of course, she's crass. And I was like, no, 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 that's not it. And so I think I've always been a little bit bold. And I think the way that like my neurodivergence of hella ADHD like hyperfixates on things. So once I dive feet first into something, I start learning, I have no problem talking about it. I'll be like, oh my God, yeah, this is what's happening. And this is how it works with the breath work that I'm doing, or, fill in the blank with that. And I'm really good at reading a room. So when I see people get like really uncomfortable, I'm like, oh, what's coming up for you? Like, let's talk about it.
Good for
Let's go
you.
there
Yeah.
because like at least in my life, in my realm, everyone I know wants to be having good sex and wants to be connected to themselves. So why are we not talking about it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if I can be the person to like open the door, kick open the door sometimes, I'm here for it. And obviously, if somebody doesn't want to talk about it, I'm not going to force them to. But sometimes we need that little bit of a nudge, or we need somebody to say, yeah, I've been faking pleasure with my partner, or man, I actually can't feel different parts of my yoni. I didn't know that it was far more normal than I was aware of, that when I have pain at the entrance of my vaginal canal, I was like, oh my God, this is just a me thing. And then I talked to other people like, oh, I have this all the time. And I'm like, for years I suffered by myself. What are you talking about? And
Mm-hmm.
so by being the person to be like, okay, great. You might judge what I have to say. I don't care. Like it doesn't matter to me, but what does matter is if I say something and it opens up a door for somebody else to be seen and heard, that's where I want to go. That's the direction that I'm interested in. So it's a lot of like putting the ego aside and being like, yeah, I'm a somatic sexologist. You want to talk about it? Let's go. You don't? It makes you uncomfortable? Okay, great. I'm here if you ever want to.
Mm. What guidance or advice would you give for someone who feels like they are having a hard time releasing shame around sex and talking about sex?
Well, who doesn't have shame there? We weren't
I
given the
know.
proper sex ed,
I
right?
know.
Like,
True.
I
Yep.
think back to, gosh, I don't know how old I was, but the movie Wild Things came out and I was watching on the telly and I remember like grinding on like my bedpost. And I was like, because I thought Denise Richards' boobs were the best boobs I'd ever seen in my life, which I'd seen no boobs in my life at that rate. And I was like, what's happening? And I carried so much shame about that for
Mm,
most of my life because I was like, oh, I mean, I went to Catholic school growing up. So like being attracted to
same
a
girl.
woman, not
Mm-hmm.
okay, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody's like, go for it. So I had a lot of shame with that, being like, oh, well, like I am attracted to everyone, which is an interesting thing. So I carried that within me. And it was like, once I started to like talk about it with somebody close to me, it felt like it wasn't necessarily a secret that I had to keep anymore. So I would say communicate with the people that you feel safe with. I just had a consult call with somebody who was saying that, he's identifying that he might be a queer man and he's dating a woman. And I was just there to celebrate it because we get to change, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of it, he was like, wow, you made me feel so safe and seen in this moment that like what I'm desiring is okay. And that's what we should be doing. I'm not yucking anybody's yum. So if you want to, disclose something deep, dark, I got you. Come talk to me or go find somebody in like your community, your friendship circle, whoever it is that you know is going to love you beyond measure, and just try and be like, hey, I want to try to say something. I'm really scared to share it with you. Can I? And see what happens and see how much love and support is actually there. Because if you were to consider if somebody were to come and say that to you, what would your response be? Right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think you'd be like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's probably, if you're listening to this, if you're a follower of you, like, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably a bit more open minded.
It's a safe
So,
space, judgment-free
right?
zone. I always say
Yes.
that. It's so
So,
true.
like, just
Mm-hmm.
starting small and seeing how it feels. And now I can tell everyone, oh, yeah, I faked orgasms. It's okay.
Totally. Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. So let's dive deeper into the bedroom and all of those fun, spicy topics. So, okay, let's get started with how do we set the mood, right? Like, how do we create a safe space for intimacy in the household? Like, what are your tips for that?
I like to make things as simple as possible because I will overcomplicate something at the drop of a hat. So for me, I check in on how am I feeling today? Where am I
Mm,
at? Right now, today, shockingly, with only a few hours of sleep in me, I am highly energetic. I know I'm ovulating, so I know I'm already kind of a little bit turned on there. It's not going to take much to get me in the mood. That being said, the other 3 weeks out of a month, I'm insufferable. I have to dumb it down real easy and be like, okay, I'm gonna need that lighting to be a level that feels good for me. I don't do overhead lighting. I need it to be soft, ideally candlelit. So I'm gonna make sure that there's always candles in my room. I made a really fun, sexy playlist where I know it's gonna get me to move my body in a way that feels good and not for my partner. And this also applies for solo sex, right? Where if I'm getting into my body and I'm moving in a way that feels good for me, I'm tracking the sensations that make me feel good. So utilizing your primary senses is one of the easiest ways to get into that. If we're dimming the lights, that's utilizing your sight. Also, if you're lighting a candle, that could also be smell. If you want to eat something super delicious, go into an aphrodisiac, have at it. Sound is going to be that playlist. Touch, hello, bring loving touch onto your body. Don't overcomplicate something that can be really simple. If you're feeling a little spicy or like you want to be in that realm, it's like the gears are already greased, right? So how do you continue to take yourself there? For me, I'll take like a really nice long hot shower and I'll put all of my like delicious smelly like creams on and I'll be like, ugh, I'm undeniably sexy right now. And it doesn't mean I always feel like that, right? But like I
mm-hmm.
need to feel comfortable in this meat suit that's carrying me around because it's carrying the essence of my soul. And if my soul is feeling like it needs a little bit of orgasmic pleasure, then by golly, I'm going to give it to her.
I love that line.
Yay.
Save that quote forever. Hell yeah. Ah, yes. Okay, so from there, let's talk about communication in the bedroom. Let's talk about partner sex first,
So
and then
hard.
we'll talk about solo sex.
So hard for
So,
people, myself included.
yeah.
It's so scary, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's scary to be
it's the
vulnerable,
worst.
right? Like,
I
yikes.
know. I know.
Um, I think personally that most communication, when it is pertaining to your sexuality, the kind of sex that you want to be having, should be made outside of the bedroom. I
Yeah.
think if we like, okay, I can only speak from my own experience, right? Right, right.
Hmm.
Uh, if I'm holding on to something and I'm like, okay, I'm very kinky, and when I have new partners, I am now in a monogamous marriage. But like when I was introducing my now husband into things that I was interested in, I wanted to rip my flesh off, right? Like I didn't know how to be like, I'm a submissive brat, and I like held it in my body, shoulders all the way up to my ears, and then I remember he was like close to me, and I was like, I'm gonna say it now. And I'm like, we're about to have sex. What are you doing? Like, no, just be
Hmm.
in that moment and then talk
Mm.
about it later. And I remember I had to like kind of talk through everything and be like, this is what I prefer. What do you like? So I like to share something and then I like to be really curious about what is the other person like? And then we get to have a dialogue where they also might feel comfortable enough to share vulnerably. I have no problem leading that conversation. It's somewhere that I feel safe. I understand I'm in the minority there. So if you're someone who's like, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to say it in the mirror to yourself first. Get used to hearing yourself saying it out loud. Trip over your words, whatever it may be, give yourself all of the compassion. But once you've said it out loud, even if it's just to yourself, it can kind of take that charge away of where it's like, oh my God, this is really scary, into, wow, I'm just a human person with needs. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
And not everybody is going to match what you want. And that's okay. Even if, like, I certainly was scared to say some things like post marriage, because like stuff comes up, you change, your sexuality changes as you continue to grow with a partner. And I was like, am I going to be judged? And like, I haven't been, which is really nice. So I think I always go in with the benefit of the doubt that whomever I'm talking to about this wants the best for me and wants to provide me with pleasure in the same way that I want to do that for them. So I ask a lot of questions back
True.
and forth, and I like to keep it silly and just as light as possible because it can be something that feels like it's really heavy. But generally, the weight of that is conjured in our mind and not necessarily in reality. So sometimes it's just about getting that first word out and seeing where it goes. And if you start to feel unsafe, then shut that conversation down. Try again another time. If somebody's yucking your yum, you know they're not your person for that, and that's okay.
Yeah, and if they're not focused on wanting to give you pleasure, then why are you even trying things with them? No, out the door.
I remember I had a
Goodbye.
therapist who was like, "You're done fucking men that aren't fucking you."
Yes.
I was like, "Oh,
Yes. Okay.
well then.
Thanks for the permission slip.
Well then." She's also like 80, which is so funny.
I love that even more.
I love her.
So what's popping in my mind as we're talking is, and probably someone listening needs to hear this. I think what's important too coming into this conversation is really knowing and owning what you like and
Yeah.
what feels good to you. So, what if someone listening doesn't really know? Maybe they haven't fully explored themselves yet, or they're kind of on that journey of figuring things out. Where does someone begin?
You don't know till you know, right?
Yeah.
I think most importantly, the first kind of step forward is having an open mind. I think I already said this, but like I try everything twice because the first time I'm going to judge the shit out of it, right? I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is silly. I don't know if I like this, blah, blah, blah. And then the second time, I'm going to be able to take an accurate appraisal if I'm actually enjoying this. So don't be like, well, the amount of times when I'll talk to a client and they're like, well, I tried anal once and it was awful. And I'm like, was it with your high school boyfriend who didn't use lube? Yeah. You're
Oh
probably
God.
like, that sounds
High
not
school.
fun. Yeah.
Woof.
Oh, listen, I was spicy. So I'm always like, cool. Well, like if you have the right tools, things can probably start to change. Or
Yeah.
even like when it comes to working with my vulva, having clients of they're like, I've never owned a toy. Where do I start? As I'm playing with multiple of them here. And it's like, buy them, explore, see how they feel. Go and watch some porn, ideally ethical porn. But and see like, oh wow, does it pique anything in your body? Listen to some audio erotica and see what turns you on. If you're listening to something, for me, I'm a big like audible kind of human. If I'm listening to somebody and like they were getting dominated, I was like, oh, like I kind of perked up and I was like, ooh, what's this about? Which then, led to me having to have a conversation with my then partner of like, how do we kind of explore that? And they weren't down. So I had to like put that on the shelf for a bit until I got out of that relationship and then I got to explore it. But there are a bazillion different kinks out there. Google, there are so many things you can Google on the internet. What's her name? Jaya, I think is how you say it. And she has an erotic blueprint quiz. There's a free version of it where it breaks it down, I think, into 5 different blueprints. I can't do them right now because I'm not going to remember them. But it's a nice kind of jumping off point to figure out, hey, where do I maybe want to start? Are you a sensual based person? Are you a sexual based person? Are you a kinky human? There's 2 others, a shapeshifter and something else. Energetic. So the energetic one is like where you really build on like the foreplay energy and kind of going with that. So it's nice to kind of be like, oh, who doesn't love a quiz? I love them. And then you're like, okay, great. This is a direction that I can start to go in and explore and see kind of where does it go. The internet is a wealth of information, and a quick little Google search can prop up like, hey, here are 20 things you might want to try. But I always say start with your body first and see what feels good for you and how can you then verbalize that to whomever you're with to be like, hey, can you explore this? And then return the favor.
Totally. And I will put the quiz link in the show notes if you're listening so that you
Yeah.
can find that. I'm definitely going to check that out. That's so fun. So, with a solo sex self pleasure conversation, I feel like that's still a little bit of a taboo topic for women, especially. Maybe
Yes.
not so much for men, but
No, right?
women.
Men have a fun term. Or jerk off. What do we
Well,
say? I'm like, flick the bean. Like,
ew, I hate that.
it's disgusting. Yeah, I want a fun phrase, and the word masturbation sounds gross to me. Like, I
Agreed.
don't like it. I like to say solo play. It just feels safer in my mouth. So totally up to you to find whatever verbiage works for you. But like, I remember the first time a girlfriend of mine said, like, she was like, "Oh, I had a really great orgasm today." I'm like, "Oh, who'd you have sex with?" She was like, "Myself," and I was like, "Ooh, why are you telling me this?" And then I was like, "Oh, why am I judging this? Like, that's an interesting thing, right?" And now it's funny because my entire realm was like, oh my God, I had 10 orgasms by myself today. And I'm like, yeah.
Totally.
So I think a lot of this can be cultural or the way that you were raised, right? If you were raised really religious or in a specific way, then there's probably a lot of shame around that needs to be dismantled. And then so you can continue to move forward. But also normalize telling your friends, like, oh man, I had a really great orgasm with myself. And most importantly, because this is what really grinds my gears, is when people are like, oh my God, I can get off in like 2 minutes flat. No shit. Anyone can if you're using the right tool.
It's true.
However, like, tune into your body, slow it down, allow allow her juices to get there. This wonderful little yoni here, like when you're spending a minimum of 20 minutes of just loving on yourself, she gets to be so engorged, and you can have so many different kinds of orgasms. So don't limit yourself to the tiny little clitoral one where you're just putting the vibrator on it and going to town. Give yourself permission to explore, because our bodies can carry so many different types of orgasms, not just the clitoris. And people were like, oh, I can't have an internal orgasm. Like, well, maybe you put something in you and you put something on your clit. Explore your own body, your little playground. Go for it.
Oh, tell us about the different kinds of orgasms, Sarah. Like,
Oh,
let's go.
well, as somebody who could have none of them, I find it to be fascinating to have many of them. But like, okay, so if we're thinking about, putting hands onto our own body, obviously we can use our fingers on our clitoris and explore there. You can also utilize it with a tool. A tool is generally going to be a vibrator, which is going to kind of amplify it and be more of an orgasm that's kind of like a big burst in the beginning, and then it kind of fizzles out. Right. If you're going to have an internal orgasm, whether it be a G spot or an A spot orgasm, if you are a squirter, we have skein glands inside of our vaginal canal, which will then allow us to produce more liquids. Some people have orgasms with a squirt. I'm somebody who doesn't, and I think it's rude. And so there's the G spot orgasm that you can get at. And again, hands versus a toy, they're going to be different sensations all the time. A spot, a bit deeper on in there, requires generally a longer tool versus your fingers, unless you have really deliciously long fingers. That gets to happen. There's skin orgasms, heart orgasms, mouth orgasms, like you name it. Pleasure can exist anywhere in our body, and we can take it to that orgasmic level if you explore it. One of my favorite is a breath orgasm. A lot of people don't
I
understand
didn't
that.
know about that.
Oh my gosh, yes. Kiki and I have an entire workshop called Breathgasm. And I ran it here in Philadelphia, and 4 people came. And 2 of them were my
I'm
employees.
coming to the next one, Sarah. Tell
Yes.
me what it is.
So that's really fun one, where you're basically manipulating your pelvic floor muscles and you are contracting and softening. A lot of people talk about Kegels. I don't like to call them that because it was named after a man. No, thank you. Get out of my body. But when we're utilizing and playing with our pelvic floor muscles, that's manipulating how we're feeling things in our body. Most of us are taught, get tighter, get tighter. I go to Pilates all the time. They're like, tighten your pelvic floor. And I'm like, but can we also soften it? Because it's a muscle that needs to be worked in both ways. If we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly tightening, spoiler alert, you're going to
Not
lead to
good.
probably some discomfort down the line,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe not the best thing. So allowing yourself to soften that muscle completely, and almost, it's like you're creating more space within your yoni. Then when you're having sex with someone, say you're having penetrative sex, and you can link your breath up with your pelvic floor muscles and their thrust, which is really
That's
fun.
sick.
And
Yeah.
and you can trace that orgasmic energy throughout your body. You can have a nipple orgasm. Like, all of these things are available when you spend enough time, energy, effort, and care to explore what feels good for you.
Mm. Wow. 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 The full spectrum. Hell
All the
yeah.
things. And what's frustrating is, like, vulva havers, we have this ability to be multi-orgasmic. I don't actually know if everyone can be. I don't think that's a fair statement. Let me readjust on that. But some of us can be multi-orgasmic. As somebody who could have 0 orgasms, now to be able to have upwards of 20 seems crazy and like gluttonous, but I'm also here for it. But we can really bring that energy throughout our whole body. For penis havers or people who identify as males, generally their sexual energy will stay just in their penis, which is so silly because they have their whole bodies too. So it's really about bringing that energy up and out and away from there. So, because males can also be multi-orgasmic, and they can have orgasms without ejaculating. So many different layers that can happen there, but most of us don't spend the time necessary to understand our own bodies to take us to that finish line of like, oh, wow, I'm so much more complex than I knew.
Yeah. And I feel like it really takes slowing down, to just be
Yes.
patient with it and figure things out and explore and be curious versus just kind of like rushing to get it done.
Well, my favorite thing is, there was some statistic, I don't remember it, so I won't quote it, but they were saying basically most people solo pleasure the same way that they started. And they don't really switch it up. They don't kind of change
Oh,
positions.
yeah.
They kind of just fall into the same thing over and over again. Unfortunately, that can also happen in our partnered sex lives, where if you're with somebody, you're like, man, like they're having sex with me in this way that I've never had before, but they have probably had it that way before many times. So that's again where the communication is going to come in to be like, well, why don't we explore this? Or it feels really good to me when you touch here, or do it like that. So then you're like, oh, this is how we're kind of progressing and moving forward.
Mm. And getting back to the orgasm topic, how did you bridge the gap between going from anorgasmic to multi-orgasmic in your own life, if you're comfortable talking about
Yeah,
that?
well, I'm comfortable talking about everything. Thank you for the consent. Um, When I was going through my training, I was dating somebody who was very not well endowed, but did have
Mm,
magical fingers, which was really fun. So, frustratingly enough, he would be like, I want to get you there with my penis. And I'm like, but it's just not going to happen. And so I had to communicate that. And then I had to be like, okay, well, maybe we explore X, Y, and Z with hands or toys first. And then we kind of see what happens there. Didn't work out. It's okay. He's fine. And then I dated a delicious human who was delightful in the bedroom and who didn't shame me for saying like, hey, by the way, it's really hard for me to come. And he was like, okay, great. If you come, great. If you don't, that's also okay. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you for the permission
mhm.
to just be there in my entirety and to see what can I receive. And it was also one of the first partners that I had that was really like here to slow everything down, which was wonderful. So that basically kind of opened up the gate for me. And then I was like, oh, this is really nice. As somebody who was extremely slutty in my 20s and early 30s, I had then kind of dumbed down the amount of people that I was being intimate with because I lived on a tiny island and I led classes and I didn't want to sleep with my clients. And so I got really specific. So I really kind of zoned in with that one individual person and got to explore my body. And I got to see what felt good and what didn't feel good. And now with my beloved husband, who is the most patient, loving human of all time, he's like, okay, great, we'll see what happens. Or, oh, you want to try this? Or I heard about that and I want to try this out. And I'm like, okay, great, let's have at it. And then from there, because of the level of trust and love that we have with one another, it starts to kind of flourish in a different way. So for me, it really came down to how much do I trust the person and how much do I believe that this person isn't demanding an orgasm from me? Because spoiler alert, the point of sex isn't an orgasm.
True. So
Right?
true. It's
And that
not.
that also goes for my humans who are having sex with male-bodied individuals. They don't have to orgasm. Don't force them to. The amount of men that I have had as clients and friends where they're like, "Oh my God, the amount of pressure, like if I don't have an orgasm, I feel like I failed them."
Mm,
No, the point of sex is to have that connection with somebody. If it gets to orgasmic pleasure, great. As long as you are both willing participants, you're having a good time, things feel good for you, that should be enough. Please, I want everyone to stop forcing other people to feel like they have to have this big orgasmic pleasure or like you failed your partner if they don't. It's not true.
yeah, totally. And the other thing too I wanna say is that when you're exploring connections with new people, right, how can we create safety and intimacy with those connections?
I love when when people are like, I've had so many one night stands, I've never had an orgasm. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't either. I don't feel safe with them. What are you talking
Right.
about?
Yeah, totally.
Like in when I was in those scenarios, I would make sure like my setting and scene were put in place. And so for me,
Mm,
I feel safer in my home. I know exactly where all the things that I'm gonna want. If I want a splash blanket down because I get a little juicy, like all of those things are there. So being able to control that and being able to check in with my body. Is this something that I want to do tonight? Do I feel like I can invite this person over. And if I don't want to have penetrative sex, that's available. Right. So, like, how am I taking care of this body of my wants and needs in that realm? And also honoring what they want. Just because they want it doesn't mean I have to give it to them. But are we both going to respectfully honor the other person's needs and not overextend or give because we think that we have to? So, if you are hooking up with somebody new, give yourself time. The amount of times that I'll hear from humans like, oh my God, I was dating this guy for a few dates and we had sex and it was bad. So I cut him off, red flag or whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you're a whole new
mm,
body, a whole new ecosystem that somebody's getting the opportunity to be a part of. Try again.
yeah.
Try again. And then what my favorite things when I ask them, like, well, did you tell them that you didn't like the sex that you were having? And they're like, no. And I'm
Communicate. Hello.
like, you're setting people up for failure. Knock it off.
Yeah,
Just get out of
totally.
my life with your icks and get more in the realm of stop talking as much shit and talk to the person that you're being intimate with.
Completely. And then on that note, because you are in a committed married relationship, what advice do you have for someone listening who wants to spice it up in the bedroom with their
Oh
significant other?
man, go take that quiz because that might be illuminating for you to
Mm,
see like what kind of direction you want to go in. If you are a vulva having individual and you are in a partnership with somebody who has a penis, I kind of love that. I've at least found, at least with the people that I've coached and with my own husband, sorry, they don't really understand their bodies. So I like to like spoil him and get curious and explore and be like, well, what kind of touch do you want? What kind of sex do you want tonight? Is there a fantasy that you've ever wanted to play out? Go to a sex store. And maybe you get an outfit. Maybe you get a toy. Maybe you watch some porn together. Maybe there's a kink that you want to explore. You're like, maybe I'd like a little bit of spanking and see what you like. Go at it with a curious mind. If it piques your interest, talk about it with your human. you might be with them for the rest of your life. And if you're not satisfied in your sex life now, it's up to you to take the reins and change that direction.
Yeah. So I love all of that advice. It's so good. How do you how do you discover if you're sexually compatible with someone else?
I mean, I think you kind of know after a wee bit.
Yeah.
I feel like oftentimes what I will hear, especially after we get out of the limerence period, which is like that honeymoon phase,
Mhm.
it's at least for me, it was very easy for me to be all swept up in that because the hormone spikes are happening. I have physical touch, things are feeling good. But after that kind of window starts to fade away, and then you're like, shoot, do I like this person? Like, what's happening here? I follow matchmaker Maria on Instagram. I think she's hilarious. She gives really funny dating advice, but she has this 12 date rule, which she says you're always down to break rules. But she says really get to know the person first before having sex with them so you can understand if you even like them as a person. And that really changed the game for me because I was like, oh, I'll have sex with anybody anytime I want. I'm a liberated human. But then when I slowed it down and I was like, oh, do I want to be having sex with this person? I got to see if I actually liked them as a human before all the hormone spikes happened. And then I felt
Yeah.
bonded to them for life. That's dramatic, but I'm dramatic. Pisces, you know?
I
Uh,
get it. I get it,
and
girl.
then from there, being like, okay, well, what kind of sex are you having? Are they open to talking about things? Are you attracted to them? How do you ever fantasize about them when you're not with them? Like all of these wonderful, easy ways for you to do little checkpoints and being like, oh, how attracted to them are you? And listen, sometimes it's like you're not attracted, and that's okay. Like you kind of had fun for a few weeks, and then you're like, man, that kind of fizzled in that way. I think we put a lot of demands on ourselves, or we kind of square peg round hole a situation. But if you're not feeling it, honor that intuition. Your body is super wise. This is going to talk you in and out of a lot of things in your life. But at least in my experience, my body is kind of like, whoa, hey, there's a very clear yes or a very clear no. And I kind of let that guide me. So perhaps if you feel like you're not connected to your intuition, or you feel like, if I say listen to your body and you're like, I don't understand what that means, get curious about that and see what are your tells, what feels good for you. So then you know when it's time to either cut things off or move things forward.
Completely. Yeah, I think the answer is really tuning into yourself.
Yes. Yes. Less people pleasing,
We're
more
all in
does this bring me joy and pleasure? No? Bye.
completely. We're all intuitive listening to this podcast, so
Yes.
you know. And for someone listening who may be struggling with low libido, how can they get their spark back?
I don't want you to get your spark back. I want you to be okay with no libido for a minute. I think there's so much
Mm.
shame and demand of
Mhm.
how do I change this? How do I fix this? Baby, you're
Mhm.
not broken. Look at your life.
Mhm.
Like I'm in and out of this all the time, right? I run a couple of businesses. I have a very full social life. I am annoyingly busy all the time, which unfortunately for me means that sometimes my sex drive is dead. My Emily Nagoski, she wrote "Come as You Are" and then "Come Together," which is a book about couples and long-term relationships. And she has this like brakes versus accelerator kind of experience. And it's like, what's putting on the brakes in your life? If you're somebody who has kiddos, your brakes are probably going to be on because you're focused on keeping whole humans alive. If you're somebody who is working really hard and has a really big social life, your brakes are going to probably be on because your primary focus isn't on that in the moment. If what you're trying to do is feel more connected to yourself or to your partner, start to prioritize it. Start to be like, okay, I'm going to schedule sex. Even if I maybe don't want to have it, I can at least know that it's on the calendar. We can have a conversation about it. Or if it's solo, be like, cool, can I spend 5 minutes connecting with my body and see how I feel afterwards? Make it easier than you think it needs to be, because I think oftentimes, especially, on TikTok and Instagram, people are often giving out advice that feels far too grandiose. I think when we start to understand, like, oh, I'm overwhelmed in this present moment. Oh, society is really friggin' weird right now. I don't necessarily feel safe. Cut yourself some slack if you don't want to have sex. It's okay. But try to do things that drop you into your sensuality so at least you can maybe start to have that little bit of a spark going on there. I'm the biggest proponent of bringing hands onto your own body. I give myself little hand massages every day just because I'm like, this touch is important and touch is healing for ourselves. And it's also telling my mind that my body is also important to pay attention to. So make little easy changes. And usually when we start to talk about things, that's when things can really start to shift because it's less like hidden in the depths of your mind and more like, I don't want to have sex with my husband right now. What do I do?
Yeah.
Generally people are like, oh my God, me either. What should we do? And then you can brainstorm on something fun to kind of move forward with. But I think if you're suffering alone, knock it off, find someone to talk to.
Knock it off.
Knock it off.
It's okay. We're creating a safe space for you here in this podcast. Like, we're safe
Yes.
women. Come to one of us, have a
DM me.
conversation with
I'm here for this.
us.
I'll listen
Yeah.
to you all day long.
100%. Yes. I think that just helps remove the stigma and again, communicate. Like, I think the hardest thing is that our society has taught us to keep so much of this behind closed doors. It's either behind closed doors or it's over sexualized, with what we see with the media and so forth in our culture. But for so many of us, it's behind closed doors. And then you're not actively being open and vulnerable with what you're feeling inside. And then you feel shame.
Yeah.
So break the shame, break the stigma, have the
Break it.
conversation. Yes. Oh my God. Is there anything else I want to ask you? Are there any other important questions that people ask you that I haven't asked yet?
I feel like you are a really good question asker, and I have been so wildly impressed this entire way because you have fired things at me. I'm like, yes. I feel like you really hit a lot of nooks and crannies across the board. Nothing is coming to mind, and if it did, it would hit me because I don't stop thinking.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for this incredibly empowering conversation that is encouraging us to get out of our heads and into our freaking bodies. We could all spend a little bit more time slowing down to feel and relax and have a little fun, Life is too short to not have a little bit of fun. So
Yes, and it
that's my
feels good to
personal
feel
opinion.
good.
It
Like,
does.
get in on that.
Totally, 100%. So, of course, we have to wrap up our time together with talking about being a mystic, Sarah. So, what does being a mystic mean to you?
Okay. I think being a mystic to me means savoring the hidden magic woven into my body, my breath, my senses. I feel like it's about letting intuition and pleasure be my compass, guiding me into deeper connection with myself and then the world around me.
You were so nervous to answer that question, and you
I
did such a
was.
good job.
Thanks. I always get really overwhelmed when there's like specific things at the end because I'm like, I don't want to sound like a dummy. But also like, who cares? Life's
Who
not that
cares?
serious.
It's not. It's really not. And any final tips for living a mystical life?
Yeah, trust your intuition, trust your body. Spend some time getting connected to that. Less noise of everything else, more listening to you.
Yeah,
You're your own healer. You got this. You're doing great.
start there. She
Yes.
knows. She knows.
Yes.
And Sarah, where can people find you?
Oh, my name is Sarah Silverstein. That's it on the Instagram land. Have fun spelling that. If you'd link it, it'd be great.
I will.
And sarahsil.com. I work with people virtually in person in Philadelphia. I offer far too many modalities. And if you're just like, man, I don't even know where to start, please just send me an email or a DM. I'm here to be helpful. And if it's not me that can be helpful, we will find somebody who can. You are not alone.
Anything specific and going on in your business right now that you feel called to share?
No.
Okay.
I host workshops monthly, but a lot of my online stuff has kind of died down. So I'm more focused on my aura photography business at this rate, and it's kind of stealing all of my brain power. So the clients I get to work with in this realm are finding me perfectly, and I love it.
And if someone listening is located not in Philadelphia, can they still do a virtual appointment with you?
Heck yes, I would say actually 90% of my clients are virtual.
Perfect. Yay. Well, everyone, go find Sarah, go schedule an appointment. She's
Yay!
open for helping you with your pleasure in your life. So thank you, Sarah, for coming on the show. So grateful for you. And yay, the
Thanks for having me.
sex portal is now closed.
Is it ever closed?
Just for this episode.
Okay, fine.